Hi, my name is Turiya Autry, and I am an artist, educator, performer, multitude of things, playwright. Find different ways to make my art and my love for education combine and join forces into magical superpowers and whatnot. I was born across the river in Vancouver, and my young years were in Seattle, and then I was in California for my formative years, and been in was in Oregon for a couple decades, and now I'm a Rolling Stone trying to figure out where. I'm gonna specifically land. I have some ideas. I'm kind of living on being open to possibility and seeing where things lead versus totally trying to steer everything with a constant death grip. That's the life I'm trying to lead. It's tough because it means right now I have a couple months planned. So I'm in Oregon right now for a couple months doing work. I'm working with 2 middle schools for a week each, an elementary school for a week. I've done a couple performances. We'll do a couple more, and then I'll do a month out in Central Oregon doing an artist residency where I'm working on my own art for give or take 4 weeks, a little under 4 weeks. And this will be my first time really having that opportunity to just be expected to submerge in just doing art. So we'll see what I create during that. My goal is to branch out into more of my multifaceted art. I'm mostly known as a performance poet, to the varying degrees of how that exists on the planet, whether it be, slam competitions, open mics, one-woman show, doing theater work as an actress. That made it sound really fancy. I do theater work as an actress. I've been in a couple things that people I know were doing. But, needless to say, I think some of my goals in this coming year and definitely in the next couple months is to really work more on my music. I play violin, working on that, and creating some music instead of just looking to other people to provide me with music, and writing. And I've been starting to paint and do visual art. We'll see how that goes. I feel like for me, it's sometimes having tangible things. Writing, it's tangible. Yeah, there's writing on paper and you have a piece of paper. But sometimes you just want to be able to hold something in your hands or really look at it and know, I made that. So I find that my art stretches me to do other things, because at the end of the day, to write, you have to have lived something interesting enough or seen something interesting enough to write about or be inspired. So you can't just get inspiration staring, looking at a piece of paper waiting for it to come. You have to actually live a life. So that's what I've been doing. I hit the road in May and have been traveling mainly throughout the South, but I've been to nine states in the 9 months, and I've been enjoying seeing more of the country. So first, I'll say that I've had such a great time in the South. Let me be clear on where I've been. So I've been just outside Atlanta. Was where I've spent the most time in that chunk of time from May till now. Then in North Carolina, predominantly in Jacksonville, which is on the far East Coast, and also some brief trips to Raleigh-Durham area. I've been to South Carolina, specifically Myrtle Beach, but we did some road tripping where I've actually driven up from Florida. I didn't drive, but so I've seen some of that country in that way that you see it in the car window and go, ooh, that's pretty. Maybe one day we'll stop, but right now we're still driving. But I've spent some time in Tampa in Florida because I have family there, and then did some touring in the Southwest, Arizona, Utah, and Nevada, seeing some of the Four Corners, because that was bucket list. There were places in the country that I really wanted to see, and it was so much more than I even hoped for. Really beautiful. I have some photos of that I'm hoping to create some sort of cards or, actually do something with, because I'm actually really proud of a lot of the what did I do? I just held up the camera and went click. Nature did this whole awesome thing that was actually worthwhile to do that with. I didn't create it, but beautiful. Says the guy holding the camera. I get it. Yeah. So that's been good. It's been good to me. Washington, Oregon, California, which are like the usual stomping grounds. I've visited and seen family and friends there. And some of what I'm realizing is at the end of the day, having a couple suitcases and maybe a duffel bag can pretty much take me through, and I'm good. And really having that different relationship with stuff has been fascinating. Like, my laptop, because I'm still producing my radio show, I have a radio show on KBOO, Portland radio. And that has been nice to be able to, have tools as you travel. I have my own sound recorder to take to shows so that I can do high quality recording. Yeah, I had a point, probably. I might have lost it. But, the South. And so what I love about the South. Okay, so Atlanta. Thank goodness I did not go to that area earlier in my life. I think having the wisdom and experience that I had allowed me to go there and not have to make any collect calls from the inside. Not that I was doing anything that rowdy, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, there's a lot of partying going on. There's always something to do. I might not have got other stuff done if I had been there when I was younger, is all. I'm just going to own that. I had a great time. A lot of places to see, and everywhere we went, being outside of Atlanta, which is definitely known as being a chocolate city, the sheer contrast of going from being in Portland for 20 years with travel outside of the state, but living in Portland for 20 years, and then just being in Atlanta was great. Some of my reasoning for the South was to get close to my roots. Several generations back. My family's Northwest several generations back, like pre-Vanport on my dad's side and before that on my mom's side. So a while. But before that, they were in Texas. Before that, they were in Oklahoma. Before that, I actually couldn't tell you for certain. So there's this way that the South, if you're black in America for however many generations, your family was most likely, statistically speaking, at some point in the South, whether they chose, clearly not necessarily having chosen that. So, I think there's also something to just sort of connecting with that, because I definitely want to travel internationally, and I have done some out-of-country travel, but I felt like there's a way that I need to better know the U.S. beyond a very West Coast perspective. Yeah. So Atlanta, great stuff happening there. North Carolina, I think just North Carolina and South Carolina, seeing the East Coast ocean, having grown up on the West Coast, there's something, how does that change your cosmology? Whether, it's super subconscious, because not like people walking around my cosmology, but the sun rising out of the water versus setting in the water, that's a whole different lifestyle. That's a whole different thing. So that's fascinating to me. So to actually be on the East Coast in the daylight and see some ocean, I enjoyed that. So I feel like I want to have a relationship with this country beyond the many people that I think are really fucking it up, to be honest, to the actual land and the history of it and the other aspects of it, because I think it's easy to focus on all the things that are brutally ugly and heinous in the world, because there's so many and they're glaring and they're in our face all the time. And then to be human, I think, is to constantly be reconnecting with what is beautiful in other people and in the world around us. So a lot of beautiful people and places. I support going to them, checking them out. So I've been, it's been good. My kids got grown, so I had a level of freedom that I hadn't experienced in decades. And so that was a good excuse to be what do I want to do with my life? So I'm at the age that I am going, I don't know exactly what's next. Hopefully more of what I've been doing, and just really expanding into a new market, which is strange because I don't even, you have to think that way in the society we live in. But at the end of the day, meeting people, getting to a point where people are like, oh, you're doing something, let me check that out, as opposed to like, I don't know you. So that's been interesting and a nice challenge. And I think it pushes you as an artist to kind of redefine, who you are, what you're doing, what you're about, where you're trying to head to. And I think that's always good to make positive shifts and do things different. So right now I'm working at Jason Lee Middle School with technically 7th and 8th graders specifically, but I did see a few 6th graders today. And we're doing a combination of writing and visual art, which visual art aspect looks like me also giving them access to art supplies and them thinking about expressing their writing visually in some form, because not all young people and not all adults want to write, or that doesn't necessarily inspire the writing. Kind of like I was talking about before, sometimes drawing will give you something to write. So I'm letting them do both, and we'll see how it goes. They're great. I love middle schooler students. They're in that age that I remember so well. Just I personally was evil when I was a middle school student, and so I feel like there's something really powerful to like being in that space and just being like joyous and loving and glad to be there, as opposed to what middle school was for me, the 3 years I had to be there, and knowing that they're in that place. And so if I could come in and just be like, hey, there's life after this, and trust me, it's going to keep getting better. Like, just know that this is exactly what it is. It's not you. And I think there's something really powerful to that. And then, just their energy and what they're doing and their creativity and how they see the world, and really looking at, what are young people grappling with or thinking about or joking about, like the silly songs that they're going to randomly like bust out singing today. It was, randomly something from Little Mermaid, which I wasn't, under the sea, like just started in this little random around, and, those kinds of things that are just funny. Like, okay, right, we're at the end of the day, kids are kids, teenagers are teenagers, and, adults, we do that adulting thing. So it's good to be reminded of, what the other end look like, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, because I get kind of old and crotchety. I'm old and crotchety about certain things, way beyond my time, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm like, this whole Beyonce thing, I don't understand why everyone's talking about Beyonce. Back in my day, I feel like we had...
I saw your post about that.
I got some flack for that. Yeah, and, maybe rightfully so. I mean, what's my opinion? Everybody's just like, orifices. Everybody hopefully has one, or else, their life's a little bit more complicated.
SNL did the whole...
Brilliant. That was brilliant. When white people realized that, like, Beyonce was black, brilliant.
Well, there was that, but
Oh.
before, there was a Beyonce army or whatever, where people who speak out against Beyonce...
I could totally see that. Like, I don't think, just speaking of this, like, I'm not trying to talk about this Illuminati mess, like that, I don't want to bring that into the picture. But you got to wonder, right? It's like, it's a little weird. Or it reminds me of They Live, and everyone's, doesn't even realize what's really happening. And I think what I said wasn't even that inflammatory. Honestly, like, it really wasn't even, it wasn't even that bad. I was just saying, like, I don't think the song is really going to be the answer. That's really all I was saying. And I was also talking about Cam, and no one said anything about Cam. Like, there was no, because, I felt like, why does everyone care that he walked out of an interview? You know what? If I was in an interview, like, if someone was sitting right next to me right now, and they were talking smack in my ear all day about some stuff that clearly I don't want to hear after I just lost the most important football game in the year in a really ugly way, because getting sacked that way, I know that had to hurt his pride. So do I blame him? Do I think that actually in working with youth, and not to equate Cam to a non-adult, but you teach people from a very young age, walk away. That is the thing that an intelligent person who has self-esteem, who understands that what other people say doesn't matter, that's what they do. They walk away. So I feel like he adulted. He learned all those years, and he walked away from a situation that was not going to be... And I'm like, why is this news? Like, why does anybody care? Like, so what? Why did you lose? So we thought you might win, but you lost. Can you tell us why? I mean, who wants to answer that question? Phrased like 20 different ways. Nobody. Nobody. There's like, that is appealing to absolutely no one. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting too that no one commented or seemed really upset that I mentioned or said anything about Cam, but that I had said something about Bay, Queen Bay. You know, don't. You know, she's royalty. I guess we shouldn't disrespect royalty. But yeah, at the end of the day, I feel idol worship is an accurate term, and so I find it interesting that people, certain wording will just really, and I mean, I'm a writer, I'm aware, and when I said idol worship, I realized that I was being clear, and just more in the sense that I think we spend a lot of time giving a lot of energy to things that don't really warrant that much energy. Period. And it's not just them. It's like in so many ways. And when we talk about, irregardless of like where someone is on the religious spectrum of things, that this idea is that you don't give that much time, energy, praise, etc., to just random general like idols. Hence idol. So I don't know. You know. So when I'm in Eastern Oregon next week, I'll be. I guess time is irrelevant when it's on the internet. But when I'm in Eastern Oregon, I'll be working with the middle school there, doing the similar project, writing in combination with drawing, and then I'll be out there for about 25 days working on my own art. So my plan is to work on the music, the writing, some painting, as well as just really trying to set a more scheduled practice of how I engage with my art, because that's the whole focus of me being out there is to do art. So I can actually say all day today, my whole goal is to do art and just to actually really practice giving myself that time and really using it. I'm excited about. And then I'll work with the elementary school when I come back in Beaverton and do a couple more performances, maybe do something out and I'm meeting with someone to talk about doing something out in Woodburn. So a lot of what I do is going into schools, working with students, a lot of different ages of students, but I've worked with as young as kindergartners and worked years with college students. So, and adults at workshops. So the goal is to keep finding ways to survive financially as a teaching artist. Ooh. And maybe have a day job if I have to. But I'm just saying, ideally, doing shows at colleges is really helpful with that. So I try to schedule those whenever I can. But now it's like trying to get people in other states to recognize me and know who I am and want to book me. And like here, I can send a couple emails and I know people, they've worked with me. They're like, yeah, we'd love to have you back. Oh, you're in town? Great. So I just have to like kind of build that in other places, Like I come here and I sit down and someone's like, weren't you at that performance? And didn't you also do it? I'm like, yes, nice to meet you. How are you today? Thanks for coming and supporting. And I go, so like here, and I think that's another good thing probably leaving Portland is, like here, that kind of bigger fish because the pond is a little smaller. And so it's good to get in a bigger pond where you have to remember, oh, right, I'm a little fish, because then you remember all the space for growth. And as an artist and as an educator, like growth, I think should be one of the constants in life, right? Like to not be stagnant and to always be growing. So even though I have my old crotchety moments, I try to also stay open to like growth and doing things different and new. You do a lot of things around Portland and Portland history and Portland arts and culture. And I will say, even as I talk about it being a small pond, like that is in no way to diminish the immense talent that is here, because it's a really incredibly artistic town, and not just Portland, but the outlying areas and even throughout the state. I know so many incredible artists that are either from here or have been here for a long time or established their art here. So Just want to put that out there, that like Portland's a pretty cool place to be on a lot of realms. And while I was ready to leave it on a lot of levels, and I'm glad to have made it less of my annual time spent. One, because I like the sun. Like in Portland, you can't help it. You can't help that. I mean, we're going to get to global warming and maybe it'll shift, and I'm not wishing for that, because I realize there's other consequences besides my joy at having more sun. So, I feel like that's a big factor. I do like the sun. I do like to not feel so... we're not alone out here, but we're kind of few and far between, and that was another impetus to go to the South. I was like, let me go be where more of my people are, and that's been positive. But again, there are a lot of great things going on here. I'm glad. I feel really blessed that I can come back and have great work and great friends and great places to eat and family. It's a blessing, right, to have sort of an anchor. As long as the anchor doesn't keep the boat from still like traveling other seas and checking stuff out, because I'm very much about that right now. Yeah, and it gets, you get comfortable, and there isn't anything wrong with being comfortable. And as a parent, and predominantly a single parent, that was important, to have familiar things and to know people and to like have that zone, the little comfy zone that you're just like, I know this place. But then, the artist and the spirit wants to also challenge itself sometimes, I mean, that's my path. I feel like people find their own path. I'm not telling you my path is your path, but needed it. Like travel is a big thing for me, like to get other places, to see other things, and not just on a luxury level, but just to be somewhere where I don't know everybody, don't know everything. Portland's hard some days. Because I know these, well, now I feel like I don't know these streets, but like I've known the city for a long time, since childhood, visiting as well as living here for a couple decades. So sometimes to walk past all the change, it's very visceral, And so it's been nice to, not that changes haven't happened in the places that I'm going to visit, I just didn't live there to witness the heartache of it all, and not to exploit that, but just to actually be able to walk a street and not have all this like psychological like impact that, that thing's not there, this isn't there, oh, this is different, the neighbors don't even say hi. Like it's traumatic to like be on a block that your family's been on for decades. I mean, like I think 50 years, potentially like 50 years or something like that at least. And like that, outside of the one neighbor that we know, like most of them don't even, who's been on the block for over 20 years, most of them don't even like say hi. And we used to sit on the porches and like, like I'm not saying we all like barbecued together and like watched each other's kids. I'm not like going overboard. I'm just saying that we waved, like sometimes someone might have a box of popsicles and like hand them out to the neighbor kids, like things like that happen. So that's been, I feel kind of like a release to sort of get to let go, I think. And that's true for just in general, like the various forms of like post-traumatic stress, of being a person of color in this country, of being a woman in this country, of gentrification, of all the various things that have gone on in every individual's lives. Like sometimes it's nice to be able to step out of things that you feel the traumatic response happening. So I think that's good. And not to say that Portland is just trauma, right? But to acknowledge that, like sometimes you don't want to go back to the childhood house and see that, sometimes that's not all peaches and cream and goodness. So it's nice to just be in areas that are new to me, where I can just really be in that moment and not think about my whole history with that place, but can actually like explore other people's history and take a breather, because I feel like a lot of the work I do, a lot of the life I lead is serious, and I found that I also have to find ways that I enjoy living to keep enjoying living is really, it's kind of important. So I highly recommend that for everybody. Please, like find some stuff you enjoy and do more of it, unless it's like, damaging to others, super like ridiculously irresponsible and dangerous. I'm not recommending you engage in those kinds of behaviors, but outside of, you know, general parameters of like good sense, you know, live your life and have a good one. Because with all the things that are going on, I feel like if we're not finding those spots of joy and self-care and things that really keep our spirits alive, what are we going to give back to the world? And so I feel like this has been a lot about me kind of rejuvenating, because so much has been a giving. You know, teaching feels, and it's not reciprocal, but it's a lot of energy exchange, you know. Parenting, oh my God, I love my adults, but parenting is a huge energy exchange, and they love you, like, true, but you do the work. You know, kids, they'll love you, but at the end of the day, you're the one with the job, you know. And so it's been nice to just really have some time to be, well, what do I want to do? Who am I? What is this path? What's this journey?
Cutting loose.